My name is Mike Foster, the Entrepreneur's Mentor, and welcome to my interview series, A Zoom With. I regularly share my thoughts via my video snippets on my YouTube channel, but this series of interviews is to introduce you to trusted experts with a view of them sharing their thoughts and their tips with you. And today I'm joined by Ben Thompson of Thompson & Terry Recruitment. Now, for many of you in the local business community, Ben needs no introduction, as he is a collaborator, a supporter of many, a proactive introducer, a proven referrer, and a respected connector. And on his LinkedIn profile, Ben describes himself as a recruiter who only submits candidates that he would personally employ himself. And I look forward to exploring that a bit further with Ben as part of this interview. So welcome, Ben. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
So Ben, in the usual format, I've got a few questions that I would love to ask you and find out your thoughts and tips about. And really, my first kick-off question is, what do you see is happening in the recruitment market right now?
Yeah, it's certainly a turbulent one, like most markets, I think. We're certainly hearing, unfortunately, of a lot of redundancies, certainly a lot of uncertainty around many roles from both candidates and from clients. Having said that, we are seeing a lot of green shoots, and there's still that big percentage of clients that are still looking to expand, still looking to drive their businesses forward, and still absolutely have vacancies. I think where we're finding that there is a particular almost mismatch in some ways is around the particularly skilled or particularly niche candidates, so within kind of science and tech or marketing or even sales, where you read the news, look at the newspapers, that kind of thing, and see all of the redundancies, the employment rates. But actually within those particular areas, recruiting is just as hard as it's ever been, just because candidates that are still employed aren't looking necessarily to make that move, aren't looking to lose the security. And actually there's very few candidates within those very high skilled areas that are unemployed as well. So it's certainly for us very much about kind of managing client expectations at the moment.
Great, thanks for that overview. So is there a particular level of candidate that's struggling to find work at this moment in time?
Yeah, absolutely. Certainly I wouldn't have wanted to be a 2020 graduate. And actually I very, very much feel sorry for the fresh candidates into the market. I think that for employers, it was, of course, a very challenging time and redundancies needed to be made. But also on the recruitment side, there were less junior or certainly entry-level vacancies advertised as some of than I've ever seen before. So I think that where there is a particular challenge is those school leavers, those graduates, those junior candidates that are at the start of their career and just haven't been able to kind of get that first foot on the ladder.
Interesting. And considering your experience in recruitment, how do you see that recruitment's going to change in the future?
Absolutely. I think more than ever before, and actually I think it's been almost a movement for probably 5 to 10 years, is that candidate expectations. I think that if we were to look back 5 or 10 years ago, it was very much about candidates looking for the best salary they could get, or it was very much about kind of 4 weeks a year holiday was a benefit. But actually I think more so than ever before, they're looking for professional development. I think they're looking for a level of flexibility to fit around that kind of personal life. I think that candidates are looking for kind of that work-home balance, but also the ability to have some of the benefits. So, childcare vouchers, cycle to work schemes, flexible working, and actually candidates are still looking to do a really, really great job. But I think we're seeing more and more the employers that are offering that kind of level of flexibility combined with professional development, combined with that career path and the genuine opportunity to progress, are the employers that are finding it still, really kind of desirable to work for. But actually, I think that some of the clients who may not be as experienced in recruiting and are still at the stage where they were 5 to 10 years ago, that is becoming ever more difficult to hire.
And is it true out there that when people are advertising for jobs, they're getting hundreds of applications?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Certainly depends on the role. I was speaking to one hiring manager who works within the hospitality sector. They put out a role for a receptionist at a hotel, and they had 700 applications within 24 hours. So certainly you get stories like that. But I think within our own experience, a couple of months ago, we filled a role within kind of quite a high-end bathroom showroom type environment, and we had over 200 applications. I say 200 applications. We spoke to over 200 CV candidates that we'd reviewed their CVs. Probably half of those were applications, and we conducted 19 interviews off the back of that. So certainly the number of applications are really high. But also, I'm finding that from applications themselves, often the quality has been on average slightly lower. And I think the reason for that is that there's a lot of candidates that are in the market that have been made redundant or are really, in the most simple way, probably desperate for work and probably applying for roles now to pay the bills as opposed to necessarily the career.
Well, it certainly highlights the value of having support of an agency like yourself to cipher through those applications. So let's think about that a bit further then. Let's think about businesses that are looking to hire, especially their first employees. What advice would you give to those type of businesses?
I think the first thing that I would probably do is look at what do you need to be, what tasks do you need to be filled. Don't necessarily look at a job of a sales executive or a PA or an office manager or whatever else. I think firstly, look at that need within your business and then almost work backwards to kind of develop the role, but also kind of think about how can you add value to that role to make it more desirable? So could that role work around school hours? Could that role have an element of flexible working? But also, could you add added responsibility? So one of the things that we've done in our own business and for a number of clients is created a graduate program by adding a little bit of business planning, by adding a little bit of finance, by adding a little bit of marketing to, in essence, a recruitment job. That makes that hugely attractive to a candidate. The other thing I would do is definitely get professional advice. You don't necessarily need to use an agency, but I think it's always good to kind of get advice from someone like yourself on the coaching side, or someone like myself on the recruitment side, to get that kind of professional advice in terms of what is the market looking like, how can I make that role really fit within the business, but also really fit for that candidate. So that would certainly be the first thing I'd do. I think before going to market and speaking to candidates and starting the search, really do that homework to ensure that you're creating a role that can fit your business as well as fit the candidate and then grow over a period of time.
One of the things I quite like in terms of something you said to me that as a conversation we had, we talk about candidates, making sure that their candidate is their application, their CV makes them stand out. But one of the things you said to me is really important, I think, is how a business makes their job stand out. So in terms of writing the job specification, etc. Any tips around that in terms of?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a phrase that I really often use is positively sell. And that is often extended to candidates as well when writing CVs, but particularly with the job adverts. Candidates really want to get a feel of the business. Talk about what your office is like. Talk about who your clients are. Talk about the fun bits. So within our office, we've got a Labrador. We mention that. We give our personality around the business because actually I think that a sales executive or a PA or an administrator, the job title gives away a big part of the role. So I think that the big thing for me is it's not about listing duties, requirements, key skills. Do that at a later date. I think an advert is designed to give that hook to encourage the candidates to come and talk to you. And you're looking to almost attract mass to start with. And then it's the job of you or a recruiter to then whittle that down to the very best candidate for the role. So I think about, yes, absolutely. When I say positively sell or honestly sell, it's about being very honest and you by no means want to mislead. You want the candidate when they speak to you think, do you know what? That's exactly what I expected. But on the flip side, it's really, really important that you talk about all the nice things. So one of our clients has a duck pond outside the front of their office. One of our clients has a five-a-side football team. One of our clients are all big Oxford fans. You wouldn't think I was with the shirt behind me, would you? But again, it's just small things that sell the personality, because people aren't just looking for a job that they can do well. They're also looking for a place that they're going to enjoy to work, but also talk about why the roles become available. So within our business, one of our most recent hires was created because somebody had been promoted. Again, that's a massive selling point to a candidate, and just really, really give that true overview in that positive light, and talk about things that you probably wouldn't be able to see on a normal job description.
That's a great answer, because that really links in what you talked about at the start about what candidates are looking for versus how businesses can pitch their job opportunity. So I guess we shouldn't duck the question really in these difficult times about unemployment and those facing redundancy. So there are unemployment rising, there is people facing redundancy. What advice would you give to those people?
I think my biggest thing is be honest, and I think that starting with the employer, which is kind of away from the question a little bit, I think the more honest you can be to your team, the more notice you can give, the better. I think that that's one of the things that's come out of this pandemic is I think people are people, and I think treat them that way. I think from a candidate point of view, there's a lot you can do now before necessarily being made redundant. So if you're on LinkedIn, or if you're not on LinkedIn, create a LinkedIn profile, request recommendations from clients that you've worked with, from people that you've managed or people that you've been managed by. It's a lot easier to do it whilst you're still working there than it is afterwards. Also, make sure that you spend a good amount of time building your CV over a period of time. I think that a job, it's a massive part of most people's lives. So I think that it's a lot easier to write a really solid CV over a couple of weeks, maybe check in with some friends or professionals around, what's your views on this, than actually when you have just been made redundant or let go, when you quickly need to make a decision. So certainly do that. So make sure that your CV is in great condition. Make sure that you're asking for recommendations on LinkedIn, and you're connecting with the right people over a period of time. So that could be recruiters, that could be people within your trade or profession, that could be colleagues or clients that you've worked with. But I think that secondly, a big thing is don't necessarily jump, because I think that we're all, we all worry about paying the bills, or would worry about paying the bills if we didn't have a job. But actually, I think that although there are high unemployment rates, although, watching the news is certainly a little depressing, isn't it? I definitely think that my advice would be only move for the very right thing, and take your time. And actually, you're better to be in a job, to look for a job. It's a lot easier to get a job from a job than it is to get a job from being unemployed. So I think that, yes, keep your eyes open, get your CV prepared, get your recommendations together, start having those kind of honest conversations and connecting with potential businesses that you might like to work for, but certainly don't jump yet. And I think the chip pan fryer is probably a good analogy to use, isn't it? It's certainly important that you make that right move.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ben. Thanks for answering those questions. So if people want to get hold of you, how do they contact you?
Either go to our website, so thompsonandterry.co.uk, or feel free to give us a call, 01235 797 177, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn, and on there most minutes of most days.
You certainly are. So thank you again. Thanks again, Ben, for your time and sharing some thoughts with us today around the recruitment market. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks everyone for watching.
Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and next time I release another Zoom with interview or one of my other interviews, you'll be one of the first to know.